Think about leaning in, and I can lean forward.
In 60 years, I want to be like you. You got this.
You got this. That's a win right there. So, take the pressure. Take the pressure off your circle when you put around your head.
What's up, guys? I'm here with my friend Graham Tuttle, aka the Barefoot Sprinter, and we're gonna break down some common mistakes people make when they're engaging in a running or sprinting practice, and 5 exercises to keep that from happening.
Yep. Hamstring strains suck. So we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes people make when they try to get into sprinting that leads them to get injured, and we'll go over some. I'm going to make him do some stuff, make him look a little silly so we get some strength to it. That doesn't happen to our boy Aaron.
Word up. Let's do it.
First thing you want to understand is that if you think about movement, so there's walking, running, sprinting. Jogging is a made-up thing. It was made up in the 70s, 60s to like get people to move. Jogging is supposed to be done in the heels. I get what people mean when they say they're jogging, is they're really just running slowly. But there's walking, there's running, and there's sprinting. Think of it like a pyramid, okay? When we're walking, everybody can walk, but it's our ability to get some feedback from the ground to move and to loosen everything up. One of the best things you can do before you even start running or sprinting is just take a walking warm-up. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just walk. Just feel your body, feel the ground, and just walk. That's the base layer. You're going to spend most of your time walking. Running is basically that kind of falling, and you're building up strength in that. Finally, sprinting is the highest expression of this form of movement, right? It's basically jumping from foot to foot. It's very explosive, very aggressive. It takes a lot of strength. So think about it that way. The biggest mistake people make is they don't think about the strength required for sprinting and running. They just think, oh, it's running. I just have to be in condition. I just have to be in shape. But the reality is, you have to be strong enough to do this. You have to earn your way into being able to run and sprint. Because if you don't, you're going to get injured. Now, what does that look like? This is why you have these beautiful things called your feet, your ankles, and your lower legs. So do a favor, jump up and down, bounce in place. Now you notice how he's using his feet, he's springing, his ankles are moving, his calves are engaging, everything is bouncing beautifully. That's what we want. Now, try to do that on your heels.
Okay.
See how it's immediately a little bit more painful?
Less good.
It doesn't feel good, so you can stop there.
Okay.
Now, what we want to understand is that if you take your shoes off, what you're doing is you're essentially removing the things that block feedback. I'm not saying you have to run or sprint barefoot. I'm just saying as a teaching tool, it's incredibly valuable. So when I land like that, it hurts. I'm sending all this force up into my bone, my knees, my hip, and it doesn't feel good. When I shorten my stride and land here, it's a lot more manageable. I can do that. So thinking about this as a walking and a jogging, a running, a sprinting as a form of strength training, I start off in a very low tolerance threshold to get feedback and learn how to do it. The ground is your best teacher. Then we want to think of, okay, when I look at my feet, can I move my toes? Can I move my feet? There's a whole process there. So we're going to assume you have some capacity and you're not in pain. If you are in pain in your feet, toes, ankles, knees, shins, hips, back, that's your first priority. This is if you're not in pain and you want to be able to move and develop a little bit more capacity as a sprinter. That's when you look at, what do I do next, okay? Cool. So I'm going to run our dear friend through a few exercises. You're going to start on one leg. So we want to start on one leg because it shows asymmetry. So all you do is your hands in your hips and you're going to bounce and push through the ground and point the toes to the ground and bounce on one leg. So this is a simple exercise. It's only localizing everything to the feet, ankles, and lower legs and getting everything optimized here. You're going to do about 10 to 20 reps on each side. This is not challenging. And this may be where you start. And now you can switch sides. If he's in a situation where like he doesn't feel very strong or you're not ready to leave the ground, you can hold on to something and just bounce up and down without actually leaving the ground. That's going to be good. But make sure you're pointing the toes to the ground as you do this. The next step is going to be using the arms and the legs. So we want some coordination here. So this is where we get the opposite arm, opposite leg going, and I'm jumping and I'm using a little bit more momentum to get off the ground. The same thing going as I'm pushing the toes down. Notice that the toes point down as it extends to the ankle. This is part of getting active range of motion back to the body. You notice the hands and the knees are moving as well. We're gonna work on this coordination. Now, this is a process. I'm not saying you have to do this stuff, you can rest. I'm not saying you have to do this stuff and like you have to jump A, B, C, D, E, and then go sprint. You may get stuck here for a few days or a few weeks, and that's okay. It takes time to develop the fascial strength in all the structure below your knee, okay?
Can I ask a question?
You may.
Where are we thinking as far as placement of the foot, weight, distribution on the land?
So in terms of placement of the foot, the simple way to answer that for anybody watching is to do it on a firmer surface like a harder rubber or concrete. Yeah. Whatever feels the best, the most comfortable will be immediately there. Okay. That being said, you do want to look at your toes. So if you have had an ankle or a lower leg injury, sometimes your toes turn into a bunion, so they collapse together. And you see how the toes, he's got healthy feet, but when he lands, the toes might smash together and you lose all that. And so when that happens, the ankle and arch collapses in. So you see that, if you're doing that, if you're landing and the big toe's going across, That is not what you want.
Not
you
good.
want those toes to spread. So if this is where you're at and you're trying to get started, I would suggest holding onto something, balancing, and not even letting the foot leave the ground. Just kind of like bouncing up and down, like on that foot. And just like shifting up and down. Now practice spreading those toes out and active engagement with the ground, because we want to think about creating a space here and keeping the inside of that foot up and engaged.
Yep.
Now that's what we want to develop as we work through this. So that's where you see the knee is going over the midfoot, down the middle of the line. We're developing strength here, and this is a little bit more of a rhythmic plyometric load for the ankle, feet, and lower leg. Now, this is something that, remember, you're starting off, you're just getting some tension here. It's not something you're going to jump in. This is not the varsity level. This is 101. We're just getting started. This is before you really get into sprinting. Then there's a few things we can work on. I'll show them quickly as progressions. You can bring that a little bit higher, so a single leg tuck jump, where you jump, you tuck, and you land. One at a time. Jump, tuck, land. And the same things apply. I want to land, I want to have a knee over the
So I'm
midfoot.
starting up here.
Land, I throw my knee up, I jump up, you tuck that left foot.
That was pretty shit.
Now this is where the fun part is, when you start to, there you go. It's not just about the sprinting. Sprinting is the top expression of this movement. We want the coordination. Can I get my body to move? Can I get the contralateral arms and legs to move? I want to be coordinated, I want to be smooth with the movement. So take the pressure off yourself and have fun with it. Because if you just push yourself, I'm not doing this, I gotta go here, I gotta do this, and then I gotta do 5 reps of this and
That's
10 reps
fun.
of this. Think about how you can make it beautiful. If it looks smooth, it looks coordinated, it's almost always good. That's what you want to think about.
I like that.
The next progression is to jump a little higher. 2 feet up and land. So you use your hands, you're getting higher. The point of this is that you're having to absorb the landing. And that's so the higher you can jump higher off 2 feet than you can on 1. So you take turns alternating up and land. Now notice, where are my feet, where are my knees? And you don't have to jump all the way up, you could just start and get to this point. These are all tools to get stronger, okay? Now, that's a form of strength training you can do. If you can't do those things to 5, 10 reps of each and look good and feel strong doing that, or if there's any pain, you gotta stay there. You can will up to it. But then we can start to get some more motion to it. So this is where we'll look at something like a single leg bounding. So with this, what you're gonna work on is on one foot, a little coordinated small movement, little baby hops. You see the arms and legs are working together. I'm staying in the front of my foot. I'm bouncing. Yeah. Now,
What's the conversation with the hands and the shoulders?
so all this, and this we'll get into, to put the perspective on this, the question is like, how does the rest of my body orient? There are general themes, like when my right knee goes up, my left arm goes up, my left leg, so I'm going backwards like I would walk. And I want you to start thinking about being relaxed and play with this, because if I get stiff, it's not gonna be good. What I want you to think about is the shoulder, the neck, the hands, the cheeks, the knees, the feet, are all relaxed. You are loosey-goosey, you're able to do this. And this gets into a conversation about how exactly you sprint, what the form looks like, where the nuance of all the movements are. That's a really complicated thing, and there's a lot of people argue about that, so we're not gonna get into the weeds on that. But the basic themes are, your feet have to be strong enough, you have to do the reps to get stronger, and you have to maintain the general fluidity and let your body be elastic, be smooth.
Right.
If I'm stiff and I'm just moving here, I'm just doing this, I'm gonna block the movement from flowing through.
Yeah.
That's why these single leg bounds are such a great idea. So you can start off small, and you can get stronger. So I start small, I can get bigger jumps, and cover more ground. So now, you'll see Aaron's got the hands up in front, but we want those hands to go back. And we're moving. So you can cover, and you start to see this, you're moving. That's what you want to think about, okay? So that's why, you see how this is a more nuanced thing. People say, I want to go run fast, I want to sprint. Make sure you get the basic components. We have to teach ourselves how to move fluidly as an athlete again.
That's great.
So you start with those 5 things: the single leg mini hops, the momentum hops, the single leg tuck jumps, the 2 up, 1 down jumps, the single leg bounds. Those are going to be your basics. Once you can do that, then we want to look at running. So the broad thing you want to do is be as safe as possible. Do not go at 100%. You want to win every rep and be able to walk back and do it again. Because if you sprint before you're ready for it, or you wear shoes that let you overstride and reach too far, you will pull a hamstring. So the question is, how do we do that? That's where backward sprinting comes into play. Backward sprinting and backwards running sounds exactly like what you think. I am simply moving backwards. And because I am pushing off, I have to push off of the muscles that I would be pushing off. Actively have to push myself. I don't have any passive things that help me lean into this. I have to use my ankle, my quad, my hip to extend, it's a harder movement and it forces you to move correctly. So it also keeps you from, you can't strain a hamstring. You're not gonna get hurt unless you trip or fall. Don't do that. Find a place that's 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. Start off and just backwards. You push, start off slow, and then as you feel more confident, you can really open up and really drive and reach.
What do you think about using a resistance band?
So there are the resistance bands.
Having a partner pull you back, so you have something to resist against.
Pulling, so I would be going backwards.
You're going backwards. I'm resisting.
That's valuable. So the resistance band, go grab a green one or something. I'll show you exactly. Because this falls in the categories of things you can start to do forward. But the backwards, you're already leaning, and so you don't want to train someone to lean too far back. But the resistance band works really well as a thing. So what I want you to think about is when you sprint at the top of the pyramid, that is the highest expression of what you're trying to do. Everything below that is taking a degree of freedom out. I'm moving backwards, I'm doing single leg, I'm going stationary. So what I want you to think about is you can wrap this around my hips, stand behind me.
Oh.
So this is one, once you get the sprinting, you can practice to lean in. And so I'm gonna pull you, you're gonna walk with me.
Yep.
But you think about leaning in and I can lean forward and I can get those knees up and I can start to be a little more aggressive with this as I drive.
Great.
That's a great example. So you see how he's limiting my capacity to run quickly, but I'm also practicing the arms, the knees, those are all great drills. So the point of this is saying, before you get to the point where you are sprinting, there's a lot of homework you gotta do before that point. And if you have strong feet, if you have the strength to be able to land and move, and then you go and you run, you're gonna be able to do that. So band is a great tool, definitely adding that in. The elastics, so the elastic capacity stretches you out. So the last thing we'll talk about is the shoes and the footwear. One of the big things people do is they wear shoes that are stiff and they have thick raised heels. So what I want you to think about, if I were to punch the wall but I had a big pillar around my hand, I wouldn't feel anything. I would never hit you. I would never do that. I don't want to hurt myself. But if I punched the wall without a pillow on my hand, I would definitely feel it. Now, it's not to say that I need to feel everything, but it means that if I'm punching something and I'm getting feedback, I have to move correctly. Same thing with your shoes. I personally think doing some barefoot strides, doing all the work we just did barefoot is great because it gives you automatic feedback on what's happening. But that doesn't mean you have to do everything barefoot. When you run, if you wear thick-soled shoes that let you hit the ground with your heel and overstride, you end up overreaching, and then when you pull back, that's when you strain a hamstring. That's why I think it's really valuable when you learn to run and learn to sprint that you do it barefoot and you build up slowly with strides and a controlled rate of motion. But when you do wear shoes, not all shoes are created equally. So I've got the Vibram 5 Fingers, Aaron's got the Vivo Prius, the Vivo something.
Say Prius?
The Prio 5 something, Primus?
Basically a Prius.
Prius, the Prius of shoes. Very economical. Yeah. Now you notice these, they roll up, they're flat, they're wide in the toe box, and they're thin in the sole, which gives you the protection so you're not gonna step on heroin needles and dog poop and glass, but you still can feel the ground. So you don't have to have any of these. We think that these are ideal shoes, but again, these are not doing anything for your feet. They're not disguising the fact that your feet are what are moving. So finding a pair of shoes, if you need a little bit more padding, I think an Ultra Solstice or Escalante is great as a functional middle area. But ultimately, the shoes aren't going to do anything for you, but they can let you lie to yourself about how strong you are, and then they get you in a situation where you get injured. So all that to be said, to summarize everything, there's a pyramid of running, sprinting, and walking. You start walking, you build a foundation, you get strength by running and doing plyometric work, and you add in sprinting. You need to do all three to be healthy. You have to do single leg plyometric work in place to get strength on each feet. Then you can add that into moving with single leg bounding, backward sprinting, and banded resistant running. Then you can get up to the point where you're sprinting and building up strides in a safe manner. Start with 70% of what you can do, then 80%, and then 90%. And only when you feel confident, capable, and you're really committed to this, and you've given yourself time for the fascia to really model, so this is a few months of work, that's when you go for the full speed sprints. And if you do that with shoes that let you feel the ground and run correctly and don't let you overstride, that's when you do it without the risk of getting injured. That's when you stay safe, and that's how you become a sprinter. Maybe even the barefoot sprinter.
Bam. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Any thoughts, anything that you think would be valuable for the audience to know?
The only thing that I think you covered everything really well. The only thing that stands out is there any room for conversation around breath in relation to preparation to run? Yes.
So there's a lot of moving pieces, especially when you're looking at sprinting. There's, so nasal breathing is always going to be the optimal way. And so the more you can, the higher threshold you can have in terms of your output, meaning I can run, I can sprint, I can do stuff with my breathing through my nose, the better your recovery is going to be, the better your oxygenation is going to be, it's going to be across the board. It takes time to build up for that. One of the things I always encourage people is go for walks, just breathing through your nose. Tape your mouth if you have to. Again, think of walking as like, It's the foundation of everything. It gets your feet stronger, it gets your movement better, it loosens up your spine, it gets you breathing better. Walking is so valuable. You walk, you breathe through your nose. When you can go walk at a decent pace with nasal breathing, then adding to your running. And you can control your breathing. You can breathe in for a certain cadence. You can breathe out. There's lots of things you can practice. Yeah. When you're sprinting, a lot of times the sprinting is, if you're really doing 100 meters or less, there's a force that falls into some of the technique and how you want to do it. But some of the most successful people boot the echo method or talk about really nasal breathing. It does force you to keep everything engaged and it keeps tension in the center of your body as you're moving. There's a lot of nuance in there, and that probably is a whole video in of itself. Yeah. But the thing to be sure is when you're recovering, the quicker you can shift back to this nasal breathing to get air directed more to your bronchioles, to get the nitric oxide to dilate, to get everything engaged, you're gonna have a much better recovery. It makes a huge difference. It also keeps you centered and focused. There's so much with the breath work. So, understanding this, sprinting is gonna be a whole different, it's really a discipline of itself. But when you're looking at running and walking, the more you can easily read, the better your recovery is gonna be, the better your performance is gonna be.
Nope. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
That is it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave us a comment below. Remember to subscribe and reach out to this guy at the Barefoot Sprinter on Instagram. YouTube is
Graham Tuttle or the Barefoot Sprinter. I'll figure that out. But TikTok, Instagram, the Barefoot Sprinter.
Cool. Thank you, Doug.
And you
appreciate it.
That's it.
Is up. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you would like to hear the entire full-length podcast episode with Graham that we recorded right before this video, you can jump over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Check out the Align Podcast episode with the Barefoot Sprinter. It's freaking fantastic. And please remember to subscribe below so you get each week's videos. I appreciate you. That is it. That is all. See you next week.